Welcome to the Sideline Live podcast. Subscribe for more episodes and follow our social media at the Sideline Live. We'd love to hear from you. On episode 11, I'm delighted to be joined by tackling sport co-founder and Pundit Arena journalist Daniel Hussey. On this episode, we look back at the 2020 season, looking ahead to 2021, and the challenges of setting up his own podcast. I hope you enjoy. Hi Daniel, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Hi, thanks very much for having me, Orla.
Can you sort of give a little bit of an intro or maybe sort of an elevator pitch to the listeners to kind of explain who you are?
Yes, so Daniel Hussey, I'm the co-founder of Tackling Sport podcast, which started in June. I'm currently a digital sports journalist in Pundit Arena. So yeah, long story short, I was actually in sales, working in Vodafone, pretty kind of happy, but I did want to move to Australia. So when that was coming up the tracks in like April, May time, I decided then to quit Vodafone and looking forward to heading to Australia with like 5 of us. Was pretty exciting times, and that was only this year, so obviously, or 2020. So obviously with the coronavirus, it was a bit of a disaster, to be honest with you. So it gave me a lot of time to kind of think during lockdown, and yeah, I always kind of wanted to be involved in sports journalism, I guess, and maybe kind of like the idea of a podcast. Like I love listening to different podcasts and different interviews and guests. So yeah, long story short, myself and my brother Sean, we set up Tackling Sport in June, and I think we're 6 months on now, so really enjoying doing this. And off the back of that, did a course in sports journalism, and then managed to get the gig with Pundit Arena, which I'm delighted about. So yeah, kind of big plans for 2021 with Tackling Sport, but yeah, looking forward to that.
So we've big things to expect now over the next 12 months.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a lot of work. It was a lot easier when it was my full-time gig, essentially. Like I started off not working, but now that I have the full-time job, it's a bit of a disaster, to be honest with you. But it's good to kind of balance the two, I guess. And working with Sean as well. He's studying journalism himself, so he's a lot younger. He's only 20, I'm 26, but he's a bit of a whiz when it comes to the sports, all sports. So kind of lean on him at times, especially when I haven't got around to watching all the sports. But he's brilliant. I kind of, when it's just the two of us, I kind of let him talk, and I kind of, off the back of him, push him for the Nuggets, the Golden Nuggets, as I said. But he'd be watching Championship football and all, and he'd know that league inside out, where I'd probably struggle with the Premier League in general. So
yeah. And what's it like doing a podcast with your brother?
It's good. I was we were living to get together for ages. So when you're doing the podcast, actually got a bit on top of each other. So I moved house for a couple of months. Like October, November, and it was a lot easier then to kind of juggle the two. You kind of look forward to it a bit more when we're back on top of each other now. So that started again. But yeah, it's enjoyable. Like I said, between the two of us, we do kind of have every sport covered. Like we wouldn't, he'd be massive into cricket, and I have a passing interest in cricket. So when he's talking about cricket, I can kind of take it from the point of view of someone listening to it that doesn't know much about cricket. And I'd be big into horse racing, and he similar to that, he'd have a passing interest. So, and then we're big GAA fans, big football fans. So yeah, it's a case of you're just trying to cover as many sports as you can without upsetting anyone for once. If you haven't covered there, why didn't you cover that? Well, we were an hour and a half into the review, so we said we better leave it for the week. So
yeah. And what's that? That's probably handy then, being able to bounce off each other in terms of different sports. What's your background? I know you said GAA there. Was there any other sports that you maybe play growing up or at the moment?
Yeah, so as a kid, I started with GAA with my local GAA club, Shirley Moran. So for those that aren't familiar with South Dublin GAA, we're basically sandwiched between Kilmacud, Crokes and Coola, as a very small club, essentially like a rural club in the middle of Camtini, Foxrock, which is a bit mad. So from day one, I joined there when I was 7, so loved it. So that's nearly 20 years playing for the club. So I used to be a goalkeeper, and from being a goalkeeper in GAA, I joined the local soccer team as well. So I was a goalkeeper there too. So actually did a small bit of refereeing as well. So there's 2 unpopular jobs already in the goalkeeping that I started. That kind of gets you ready for adult life, I think, when you're doing those 2 things.
Absolutely.
But, yeah. So GAA is probably my number one. That's something I always grew up playing with, and while I love soccer and I'm a big Arsenal fan, which is not going too well for me since the last 10-15 years. But the GAA's gone the other way with the Dubs, so it's great. I really enjoy. I still play with the Gers and Sean would as well. So from there, but I'd always have an interest, I guess, growing up in terms of watching sport. As I said, being a referee and a goalkeeper, you're looking at it through different perspective, and now subsequently I'm outfield now in GAA, so I feel like I can cover all that. Now you can look at it from all 3 different angles there, and I did a small bit of coaching with the underage as well. So that I've always kind of been more interested, I guess, in the different aspects of sport, maybe as opposed to playing it. Although we're playing it right now, I'm enjoying it more than I ever have. But yeah, the GAA would be the main thing growing up. Definitely, but passing interest in football and everything else. Yeah.
From a playing, coaching, and refereeing perspective, what do you make of the new advanced mark?
I was a bit. What's the word for it? I didn't want to be too hasty to criticize it because I was very against the kick out mark, which I think is an excellent rule. That came in
I was the same.
So that came in maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So I was like, okay, I got that wrong. Definitely at the advanced mark, I just can't see it working. It doesn't really make sense. The All-Ireland final was a bit of a farce where Mayo, I think Cian O'Connor hit 2 marks in a row. Like, he catches the ball ahead of his man. There's a massive chance 1-on-1 now, and we're denied that because of a simple 20-yard kick pass. So I don't think I'm a fan, to be honest with you. And there's just so many rule changes in GAA that, again, it's so hard for go back to the referee perspective for a sec. Like, supporters don't know the rules, so the referees know the rules, so they apply the square ball rule correctly, and they're told they're wrong by a good half of the people watching the game. So that gets annoying as well, where the rules are constantly changing. No one knows it. Like, for example, the kick out mark used to be 5 seconds. It's now 15 seconds along with the forward mark. But no one knows that the kick out mark's now 15 seconds, including the odd referee now, but that's another story. But so I'm definitely not a fan. I don't know what you think yourself of the advanced mark, but
I have to say, I just think it slows the game down, and I don't know, like, I just think it, like, I think the GAA, and I had David Toner on from Meath Senior Footballers, and he was saying the GAA are looking to move in the right direction, and I think they're trying to make good, like, decisions to make a good game. But I don't know how I feel about the mark. I think it's like, a good example was Paddy Small had a couple there. Was it the Leinster final? And there was a couple there that were called, and I have to say, it's so difficult for the one referee. And I remember I was in Croke Park for the international rules game in 2015, and they had a couple of referees, because that's obviously in AFL you do. And I was thinking, the GAA they need 2 or 3, maybe even just 2, another referee or VAR or something to just help them, because it's just with all the new rules coming in, there's just so much to try keep it like track of.
Yeah, well, especially in hurling anyway, the 2 referees, because like.
Yeah.
Well, if I referee a junior, I think I refereed a junior A, quarter semi-final, and like if I'm up with play, and a fullback gets the ball and hits it 100 meters, like in 3 seconds the ball is going to be 100 meters away.
Exactly.
So I can maybe I was going to say 20 meters, maybe 15 meters away. So maybe 5 meters away from the ball now.
Yeah.
And I remember blowing a whistle and calling decisions from 80 meters, and I was sprinting as fast as I could. So like, it's impossible at inter-county level. I can only imagine that ball going further and the play being a lot quicker. So there has to be 2 referees. Like, I actually wrote an article on Pundit Arena there, like 5 changes hurling needs. I brought the black card in, the 2 referees, and a lot of comments from hurling people, like, saying I don't know what I'm talking about. But like, they've never refereed a hurling game. They don't know what it's like calling it from 85 meters, and someone's saying you got it wrong, and I'm thinking I probably did. Like, to be fair, you had a better view than I did. So I do agree with you, that 2 referees thing. I definitely think it's a runner. Although here I'm contradicting myself, not wanting any changes in GAA.
Yeah.
Just trying to push for them all as well. So I'm a walking contradiction with the GAA all the time. I think most people are, I think.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think it's what bothers me is just the amount of real changes in a short space of time. I'm like, just give it a bit more time before you keep changing everything, because like you said, there's just so much confusion with everybody, with supporters, players, referees. Like, sometimes nobody knows what's going on. Like,
yeah, and just on the road, like, look, I think everyone goes through, like, Jim McGuinness's style of football was big last couple of years. But like every sport goes through that. You look at soccer, and like, parking the bus was a very successful tactic against Barcelona's passing before they eventually, the likes of Jurgen Klopp have come in, and it's the high press, and Bayern Munich's high line, and all of a sudden, parking the bus against the likes of those teams is pretty, it's not going to work most of the time. So football's gone through those stages. They never panicked. There was no call for changing the rule of, having a less player or something, like 13 aside. So there's that side of things. But then GAA was properly born, because at least when a soccer team parks the bus, the opposition there at least a little bit of skill in passing the ball around, trying to beat the team. But when, like, I remember the Dublin Derry League final, it was awful. Like, Derry had like 15 men behind the ball, and Dublin just decided to hand pass the ball and keep the ball. Yeah. And like, it wasn't their fault. They're just waiting for Derry not to, so
exactly.
There's no skill in that. It wasn't enjoyable. I get why people want real changes. I don't think they need it now. I think GAA's in a good place where the likes of Dublin, Kerry, Mayo are playing such good football that the advance
Yeah.
mark is pretty irrelevant. A few of the other rule changes are pretty irrelevant. So
Yeah.
like I said, I agree with you. There should be less changes, but then I also want a few rule changes myself. So I don't think I'll ever purely be happy. But I think everyone's like that.
Yeah, everyone is the same. And then you briefly mentioned the Dubs and the talk of splitting the county in, I don't know how many they want now. What do you think about it all, and can you sort of maybe give a solution or your opinion on it all?
This is when I prefer like asking the questions and then going off people's answers as opposed to coming up with solutions like myself. I don't agree with splitting the Dubs. But at the same time, it's not working. Like the Dublin will win like 8 of the next 10 All Irelands, then they'll win 8 of the next 10 following All Irelands, and then they'll win 8 out of the next 10 following All Irelands. From that, like Kerry, Tyrone, Mayo will definitely win one of, you know, they'll share the odd All Ireland between them. But the reality is Dublin will be in at least an All Ireland final every year. So it's not working. And like what happened in 2004 was, you know, they put a lot of games development money in. Like we see the benefits in our club with a games development officer. And I actually worked with our one in St. Bridget's school, and the work that's done in that school is phenomenal to get people playing Gaelic football, and that's replicated in every single club across Dublin in a lot of schools. Now there's certain areas of Dublin that aren't you know, getting that coaching, but the majority are. And this happened in 2004 or started in 2004. Like, I don't think we got ours for like maybe 5 or 6 years later. But like the example is we're a really small club, and half of it, the money is getting paid by the county board for that coach, and half it's raised by the club. So it's a brilliant system, and it works so well in Dublin now. The problem is if you replicate that across the country, like the numbers, you're not going to get the same numbers anyway. So like just because it works in Dublin doesn't mean, you know, throwing, you know, like $1 million into Leitrim. You're not going to get like these amazing Leitrim footballers in 10 years' time. Yes, you're going to get improvement, but you're not going to get the same level of improvement. So I think tiering is a good solution, like, but you're going to be left, like, it's going to be left with hurling then, because you're going to have, like, the same as hurling, where you're going to have like eight elite counties, which there already are, really, like the Division 1 clubs. And like how it works is really Dublin, Kerry, Mayo, and maybe Tyrone if they get their act together, and possibly Donegal. And then you could argue Galway there. And outside of that, you're not left with much in terms of anyone that can challenge Dublin. So, like, in terms of splitting Dublin, like, I never saw the argument maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I can see the point of it now, but I still don't think it's a solution, because, you know, what happens if you get a situation where the All-Ireland semi-finals are Kerry versus South Dublin, and then North Dublin versus West Dublin in the other semi-final. Do you know what I mean? So how depressing is that? So at least if there's one team to beat, it's a little bit better. True. And there's a reason I can't come up with a solution is there isn't an easy fix. It's first that I think the unfair advantages need to get rid of. So for example, like this is coming from a dub, like I said, Dublin played, like, I think Stephen Cluxton's only played a handful of games outside of Croke Park, and he's been playing for Dublin in Championship, and he's been playing for Dublin since 2001. So that's clearly not fair. It's a money thing from the GAA. So why would you give, like, you wouldn't give like Barcelona like 38 home games in the league, you know what I mean? Yeah. But for some reason in GAA, it's a thing that Dublin playing Croke Park all the time.
Yeah.
And like Dubs will be saying, Parnell Park's our home venue. Well, it hasn't been since 2010. Since Dublin started playing league games there. So I get rid of those advantages. I take All Ireland, I take Leinster semi-finals out of Croke Park, possibly Leinster finals as well. And I would take even All Ireland semi-finals out of Croke Park and have them in a neutral venue. Unless it's a difficult one, but like, it's not fair that Dubs are winning games by point in Croke Park when they played all their games there, and they're going to have a 2 or 3 points. Like, home advantage is so important in sports, and for Dublin to get that all the time, it's not good enough, to be honest with you, from the GAA, and it's been going on too long. So they'd be the couple of quick fixes, but there isn't a long-term solution I can see that will keep Dublin. Like, because Dublin, people say like they're not dominating at underage level, like minor and under 20s. They're still getting to All Ireland finals, and it's a lot easier to compete with a Dublin team at one age group as opposed to senior level. Like, they lost Jack McCaffrey last year. They've lost so many good players, Bernard Brogan, and it doesn't, Paul Flynn, it doesn't even matter, because the players are coming in, you know, like, players aren't making the 26 in Dublin anymore. It's ridiculous. But Croke Park would be a big thing. Take them out of Croke Park. They want to play their home. I'd play their home league games in Parnell Park, but like, it's a money thing, that's the problem. So I don't know if it'll happen. But I definitely think neutral venues for big semi-finals, All-Ireland quarter-finals, and All-Ireland semi-finals as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just chatting about the prediction there, you were saying Dublin are, you know, they're likely going to be in the next so many All-Ireland finals. Looking to 2021, what are your predictions for the year? I know the calendar has changed and potentially could change again if we're still in lockdown, or I don't know what they're going to be doing. But looking forward to the season, what are you expecting? Who are you kind of looking at maybe to take on the Dubs? Are you have any sort of surprised, or if any sort of underdogs maybe that are going to come up and challenge, maybe not Dublin, but maybe the likes again, like Kerry were upset there by Cork. What are you looking forward to in 2021?
I definitely think, when I say Dublin will win, I'm hopeful of a couple of better games this year. So I'd be hopeful Kerry don't make a mess of it in Munster again and get through. To be honest, that was absolutely farce. Like again, I celebrated that Cork win and then realised, well, that's Dublin's main rival. God, we're not even going to get a good game this year. Which for we All Ireland final you could argue was an okay game, but overall there were no good games against Dublin this year. I'd say Kerry probably the main challengers. It's an easy thing to say. If you want an outsider, I think Armagh, they got Kieran Donnelly in, which was a bit of a left field choice. I know his mother's from Ulster. I think she's from Tyrone, but it was still a bit of a left field. And Kieran McGeeney's been threatening to do something really good in GAA for a while. Like he was really successful at Kildare without quite making.
And Armagh have moved up to Division 1 as well, which is quite a big boost for the county.
Exactly. So they're almost under the radar, even though, like you said, they're in Division 1. I think So I think they might be, but I got my hopes up for Armagh like a couple of years ago. I really thought they'd had a right crack at not winning the All Ireland, but getting to a semi-final, and they lost. They'd lose to someone stupid in the qualifiers, and you'd just be like, that's ridiculous. Or prime example, like they can play really well against Dublin, but it's just getting to play Dublin most years where they end up losing to, like Mayo lost to Kildare like 2 years ago, a really poor Kildare team in Newbridge. Now I know that was the Newbridge or nowhere thing. So I think if Kerry get to play Dublin again, it'll be an unbelievable game, definitely. But I think Armagh, if you want an outsider, and in terms of hurling, I do think Limerick are going to win this year's All Ireland, similar to Dublin, if you remember right. So Dublin won the 2011 All Ireland. Got a bit confident, lost the 2012, won 2013. Got a bit confident, won the 2014, and then so for the two in a row, they really made sure then in 2016 that they weren't going to make the same mistakes that they made, in 2013 and 2011. I do think Limerick have learned from not doing the two in a row. Like they were the best team last 2019 as well, and they didn't win it. So I do think Limerick will win the hurling again. I just think their players are so good, and the quick turnaround will help them focus again. So Dublin and Limerick, boring predictions, but I say Armagh's an outsider, and I wouldn't rule Davy Fitz in Wexford for giving a good go because they did lose 2 knockout games. So I do think with a better and a more kind of run at it this year, I do think Wexford might be the outsider. So Wexford, Armagh, my 2 outsiders. So and Dublin and Limerick as the boring prediction for who actually wins it. So.
The usual prediction, and kind of chatting about Tyrone, you mentioned there, Mickey Harte's now gone to Louth. I don't know how long he's actually there for. I can't remember how long he's going to be the manager there for, but what are you sort of expecting out of them? Do you think he's going to make a difference, like much of a difference?
It'll make a small difference, but in the long term, it's a waste of money paying the likes of Mickey Harte to be manager of the senior inter-county team. Now, you've got to kind of, I know I said that the coaching won't get you to the level of Dublin or the games development coaching, but it should definitely be the priority of a county like Louth, and to have Mickey Harte in there with a very expensive backroom team, I'd take it. I can't remember, there was 1 or 2 big ones that he's got in, but it makes no sense to me to be putting your money there. He'll do okay. There'll definitely be a bit more of a buzz about the team, which I guess it's too much of a short-term view though. Like to have, you think Mickey Harte's going to come in and suddenly he's going to, like Louth are going to start getting to Leinster semi-finals and finals. They might get to the semi-final in the next 2 or 3 years, but I doubt it. They're not an incredibly good team. He'll improve it definitely, but where are you going to be in 3 years' time? But where are they going to be in 2024 when Mickey Harte leaves? Like they're going to be not too similar to where they are now, but they might have put a lot more of that money into resources and coaching at underage to try and get more people playing gas. So I think it's too much of a short-term view. It might work in the short term, but long term, I just don't see the point of it. I just thought I don't see the point of it, to be honest with you, because it's just that short-term gain, but you're going to be left in the same situation where 3 or 4. I think counties like Louth should be focusing on the long term. Like it's boring because if you're like a county board officer or county chairperson or head of the county board, like you're not going to be remembered for putting in these coaching systems that are going to be rewarded in 15-20 years time, because whoever takes over from you is going to get the credit for that. So they're looking for a quick fix there. That's what's happening there. But like all county boards, like a lot of county boards, they should all have like a CEO. Like I know Woolley from the GAA says that a lot, and he's completely correct, but that's never going to happen. It's just like, I don't think, I'm not a big fan of it. I didn't get really, like people were quite excited about Mickey Harte and Louth. Like, I don't really see it myself, to be honest with you.
I saw a lot of hashtag Louth for Sam over on Twitter a while ago.
And it is good. Like Dublin draw Louth in the first round of Leinster, don't get me wrong, it'd be great.
Exciting.
It's it is exciting, So I suppose from that perspective, but I'm not like, it's just the same mistakes counties are making for years, and in the short term, trying to prioritize short-term success and looking for quick fixes where the answer is in the long run. Like, in fairness to Dublin, I know they have all the population advantages, but they really got their act together in 2004 with that coaching funding, and the rewards are simple. And while Louth will never get to Dublin's level, they could definitely compete, a lot better than they are at the moment. So.
Yeah, and what did you make this summer with the whole knockout championship? They put Super 8s on hold with the current situation, and they're doing the same next year. I think it is knockout again. What do you prefer? Do you like the sort of Super 8s format? Are you a fan of the knockout? You've one game and you're, if you lose, you're out. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. Similar to what Kerry realised that pretty early this year.
Yeah, like the knockout's great for the game itself. So Kerry Cork was great, Cavan Donegal was great, and Tipperary Cork was great. But then you're left in a mess afterwards, particularly when you need someone to challenge Dublin. Putting my GAA fan out and taking my Dubs hat off for a second. So like it's the best format in terms of excitement, but you're left, as I said, in a bit of a mess. I think next year they're introducing the Park Tailteann Cup. So it's the Tailteann Cup. Sorry, Park Tailteann is a ground. Sorry, the Tailteann Cup. So it's going to be the top 16 teams are going to qualifiers, and the bottom 16 essentially in the Tailteann Cup. There's a few more complications than that, but I think overall that's probably a better format. Like, we will end up with taking your Super 8s thing for a sec. I prefer the quarterfinals to Super 8s. I think Super 8s is a mess, to be honest with you. That whole concept was a failure from the start. So I think having the quarterfinals back is good. So we will be left like a situation where the semi-finals will be Dublin, Kerry, whoever comes out of Connacht, either Mayo or Galway, and a Tyrone or Donegal. So you'll have better semi-finals and a better final. So I think that's probably a better format. What they've actually stumbled upon at the moment is it's an improvement. This B Championship, I was really excited about until I realised the final will be played before an All Ireland hurling semi-final in Croke Park, which is just like, so the whole coverage will be on it. Yeah. So the whole coverage will be on, say, Limerick and Sco Limerick and Wexford, one of my two picks in an All Ireland semi-final. That's going to be a great game. No one's going to care about let's say Mickey Harte gets Louth there, and Louth and Wicklow, and it'll be bigger counties than that. But you know what I mean, in a Tailteann Cup final. So they've already shot themselves in the foot, and people cop onto that when they realise it. So it's suddenly it's like the GAA, like you look at for like the Joe McDonagh Cup. It was played before the All-Ireland final for the first time ever, and it got unreal coverage in terms of like Kerry Antrim. Everyone knows who was in the Joe McDonagh final and who won it this year, because the All-Ireland, it was played before the All-Ireland senior final. Like, no one knew who won the Joe McDonagh, or no one knew the beaten Joe McDonagh finalists the last 5 years. So you just realised the team that came up from the Joe McDonagh when you see the Liam McCarthy the following year. So I think it's a big thing that the Tailteann Cup should be played before All-Ireland final. And I understand that there's a big tradition with minors and stuff, but that would be just my opinion. Yeah,
I didn't know that, and I was going to chat to you about with the hurling this year and having the John McDonagh on before the Senior All-Ireland. I'm so surprised by that, and that's something. Tradition with minor, and look, it's a great opportunity for the minor players. It's huge. You get to play in Croke Park, whatever. But at the same time, I would be on the same wavelength as you. You look at the ladies, they have the junior intermediate. Now, I know this year the junior wasn't on Ireland final day. I actually don't know why that was. I have to look into that. But it's great for the juniors, for the intermediate, especially coming towards the end of that intermediate game. Like, I know there's a crowd there, but typically, same with the men, with the minor finals, the crowd tend to come in near the end. And I know with the ladies, it's great because even if you're not, like, let's say if Dublin wasn't in the final, I would still head in to watch a game. Like, it's not, you know what I mean? It's sort of that culture, and I always see clubs and counties that aren't competing come up for the day and do a day in Dublin and go in for the match. But I'm very surprised by not having the Tailteann Cup on All-Ireland final day. I don't know what the thinking is behind that.
Yeah, the reason is ticketing. I think that was always the reason, to be fair. Like, in the ladies, because you're not going to, it hasn't got to the, it hasn't got to the stage where demand has exceeded supply with Croke Park. Whereas the All-Ireland final, like, you get, I think minor counties from memory get 1,000 tickets each, which is fair enough to do for a minor side. Now it'd be a lot more difficult if it was the Tailteann Cup. But I think there's bigger things at play here, like the GAA. Like, if you look at the 82,000, they send 2 tickets to every single club for All Ireland final day, which is the whole point of that is that every club gets 2 tickets. Like, our own club, for the hurling, we have a great Kilkenny man involved in the club, but we weren't a hurling club for years. We only became a hurling club last year, and we were still getting 2 All Ireland hurling tickets.
Yeah.
So I understand that's a tradition. I get rid of that tradition and you give those tickets to competing counties, more
Yeah.
to the competing counties in the All-Ireland final. But let's have the Tailteann Cup and maybe get 5 or 10,000 tickets. I understand the difficulty of that, but I think that's, and like traditions are great and all, but I always found All-Ireland semi-finals better atmosphere than All-Ireland finals in general, because anyone that wants to go to an All-Ireland semi-finals, I'm just talking about the Dublin ones here that do sell out eventually, but 99% of people that want to go to, say, Dublin Kerry in an All-Ireland semi-final get to go, whereas I don't know, maybe 20 or 30% of people that want to go to a Dublin Kerry All-Ireland final, maybe about 50% get to go, because no one can get a ticket because there's 2 tickets sent to every single club in the country. So I would change that rule so you can have the 5 or 10,000 tickets for Tailteann Cup participants. Have a triple header. Have the minors on at 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock. You know what I mean? Like, there's no reason not to have the minors involved as well. But I always found it weird the minors get the All-Ireland final day and the under-21s down to the under-20s now. Do you know what I mean? So there's contradictions everywhere. There are the traditions, but there's more important things right now, and it's getting I don't like calling them weaker counties, getting smaller counties up to closer to the Division 1 teams. You're never going to close the gap, but maybe just stop the widening gap. And if you put them on in an All-Ireland final day, that's a big deal, and it's a big day for, like, I know I wouldn't get in for maybe I'd get in for the second half of minor in All-Ireland final day, but if it's a Tailteann Cup now, I'd like to think I'd be in for a throw-in, but realistically probably not. But most clubs I'll probably struggle and get the timings all wrong and turn up 5 minutes after throwing, but and struggle to get a spot on the hill. But I think there's a bigger thing at play here, and I do think the GAA have got it completely wrong not putting the Tailteann Cup before the All-Ireland final, but that's the GAA for you, I think.
Yeah, particularly next year, when at the moment it looks like there won't be supporters in Croke Park and there won't be a ticketing issue because nobody will be going in.
That's actually a great point, yeah. So which is why I think they did the Joe McDonagh, with the All-Ireland final. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think now more than ever, that's why I thought the All-Ireland semi-final should have been taken out of Dublin Cavan. Not to go on too much of a challenge, I thought that should have been taken out of Croke Park because there was no tickets. I get I get the point of wanting to get families and people watching games and having the big games in Croke Park. I completely get that point. I don't always agree with that reasoning for for putting Dublin in Croke Park, but I get it. There was no excuse this year. And then, of course, the Cavan, I said that for like 2 days, and then Cavan came out with a statement saying we're happy to play Dublin in Croke Park.
Yeah.
Which then you have no argument there now. But like, even that from Cavan, I don't get that. Like, why would you? I understand Croke Park and players want to play there, but if you want to give your side a better chance of winning, you're better off playing that game in a neutral venue, like Clones, for example. But like, Dublin still would have won. The whole point is it's a bit more exciting for the neutral, and it makes a better game. But yeah, that's my view anyway.
Yeah, I'm always interested to find out, like, for example, with those Cavan players, like, I'd love to know, are, like, obviously everyone, growing up, everyone wants to play in Croke Park, and I always wonder, people are quick to, they're very quick to say, oh geez, get Dublin out of Croke Park, but maybe sometimes the players want to play there, they want to go up for the challenge, they're not going to back down, and they kind of want to be like, look, I've always, like, they may not get an opportunity again to play in Croke Park. Now, I'm not specifically saying Cavan, but other counties, the players might only be there for maybe a season, and that's their shot of playing in Croke Park.
Yeah, and that's probably, like, in fairness, that was probably the reason, and it was probably the wrong tree to go up in terms of the Cavan game. I know, I'd be fairly confident the Meath lads are sick of going up to Croke Park and getting battered by Dublin. Like, I understand you want to play in front of 40, 50,000 at a Leinster final, but I don't know, Jesus, like, I maybe they do, and that's fair enough. Like, the Cavan thing, and it's an All-Ireland semi-final, and you do want to play in Croke Park. I get that, but like, going back to like Leinster counties, Dublin should be playing Croke. Every Leinster final Dublin have played has been in Croke Park, in a double header with the other Leinster semi-finals. So yeah, you're probably right in terms of, like, players want to play in Croke Park, and I get that. But you at the same time, it is Dublin's home ground now, whether you like it or not. Like, they have been playing home there since 2010, and like, I remember watching a league game, and they know every blade of grass on that pitch, which is great because like, they play there all the time, and they know different angles. Like, it's so much. I always find it so much easier shooting when I'm playing in corner square where the jurors play, because where you are on the pitch, exactly where the goals are. So if you don't have time to look at the goal, little small 1% like that make add up at the end of the day. So, and you look at all the amount of times Dublin have won games by point in big All-Ireland semi-finals and finals. So that would be my view. But I do take your point, and I do think there is a big thing. Like, I never got to play in Croke Park. I'd love to play in Croke Park, so don't get me wrong. I play against Dublin tomorrow in Croke Park, not a problem. There might be a bit of that. And like, Cavan, for example, will probably never get the opportunity again to play. I was going to say a full Croke Park, but there was obviously behind closed doors, but that kind of point still stands.
Yeah. And speaking of Cavan, actually, what do you sort of see for the 2021 season? Do you reckon they have another shot at winning Ulster, or do you kind of think that was maybe a once-off?
I think it was a once-off, not to rain anyone's parade. Like Cavan have been kind of going well for a while, so it wasn't a shock. But I think the Donegal game, I still couldn't believe the performance from Donegal. Like I think Donegal and Kerry got caught in this trap of like looking ahead to Dublin and trying to come up with game plans, because you get a Donegal or Kerry playing Dublin in a semi-final or final, and you're like, geez, they should have really practiced what they're trying to do here in the previous game. Like the Kerry game, for example, Kerry were trying to come up with a system to beat Dublin. They played it against Cork, and Cork, it suited Cork down to the ground. Now they still got lucky in winning the game, but I think the likes of Cavan and Tipperary, like it's very hard to follow a high like that when you look across all sports, when you exceed expectations, and like you see a lot in second season syndrome. So Sheffield United in the Premier League, for example, when you exceed expectations the first season or a season, it's very hard to even get back to near that level the second season, because teams figure you out. You might play the exact same or even improve by 5-10%, but once teams know what you're at, it's very hard. So personally, I can see Cavan and Tipperary. They'll have fine years, but I don't see them retaining Munster or Ulster respectively. But that's just putting the reality of it. Like there's too many good teams in Ulster. You got Armagh, Donegal, and Tyrone now. Three really good teams. I could fancy a crack at getting to an All-Ireland semi-final in there. So there's too many good teams in Ulster. Like if they get a good draw again, potentially. But even Monaghan now won't be like Monaghan had them beat. And somehow lost the game, so I personally can't. And Sherdown had them beat as well. It was a weird year. I can't see it happening again now.
Yeah, it was. I was watching a good few of the games, and I particularly remember the Down game. And I was watching the last few minutes, and I was like, "What is going on?" Like it was just such a strange ending. You were like, they just came out of nowhere again. Like they just went on a roll throughout that Ulster Championship.
Yeah, like I think we were lucky that we didn't do a preview for Cavan Down that week we get on the podcast, because I remember thinking a fancy Down here, really fancy Down to meet Cavan, and sure Cavan 3 weeks later Ulster champions, you look like a right mug. But yeah, there was a few mad games in all it was actually a great championship in terms of shocks and stuff. Outside of Leinster, of course, but no, I can't see Cavan doing it again. Although it was a brilliant story, and it was a brilliant Tipperary winning on a bloody Sunday, and Cavan, like you won't get it. GAA will never get a better day like that back to back, like those two shocks, because there hasn't been shocks like that in Gaelic football senior inter-county level in terms of provincial winners for a few years. So it was brilliant. It was a brilliant day, and it came as a bit of a shock, which was and a good time where everyone was in lockdown as well. So it was good. Yeah,
and it was interesting as well. I think I saw it from Johnny McGee on Twitter. It was the way the provincials worked. It was the exact same as it was 100 years ago. The same provincial winners. Like that was mad.
It was a mad stat, and it got more mad the more you think about how crazy that is. And even if you knew that stat going into the game, you still wouldn't fancy Cavan or Tipperary to win. You know what I mean? It was brilliant, a very poignant thing, to be honest with you. And I thought the GAA celebrating Bloody Sunday, it almost worked with the championship getting delayed, that it was on the same day. That it was brilliant. And I see like all teams that play Croke Park, from like the Kerry hurlers or the Antrim hurlers to the Dublin ladies, laying a reef in the corner there in Hill 16. It was pretty poignant, and that was an amazing stat, to be honest. You couldn't believe that.
Yeah. And I have to say, Tipperary jersey, the Bloody Sunday one, was a really nice jersey. I was disappointed they wouldn't wear it again.
Yeah, like in fairness, I was saw the release statement saying, it was just to commemorate one day, which is fair enough. It's a brilliant jersey. I'd be half tempted to buy one. Like it was really, like I remember seeing it hanging up in the dressing room before the game, going, that's unbelievable. And the fact Tipperary were in such a big game, or Munster final, and winning the first one, it was 85 years. So it's amazing. And then seeing them in the blue and gold, it's not the same against Mayo. Maybe that might have helped them win the game itself. But they definitely was I don't think people like kind of over-egg those emotive values, in big games like that. But I definitely think it played a small part in their victory. Absolutely.
Yeah, really special, as you said, to be wearing the jersey on the anniversary and winning Munster title for the first time in ages. Like you couldn't write a better story.
It was unbelievable. Again, like that day, it was just shocked me, because I did think Tipperary would really put it up to Cork, but I still didn't and that all happened, and then you're kind of getting over that, and then because there's loads of other sport going on, so I never thought there'd be a big Cavan shock, so I was only half watching it, and by the end of it I was glued to it. I still can't get over that result, to be honest with you. But it's just brilliant. It makes football so special, because there's a lot more shocks in soccer, because it's a lot easier. You can score one goal, you can just need to keep the ball out of the net and score one goal. Where GAA, you've got to consistently get the points, which is why you see less shocks in general in GAA and hurling. But yeah, it was a brilliant day, and I don't think it'll be replicated again. Those two results, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, kind of chatting about the hurling for a little bit. I wanted to get your take there. I think that's right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Camogie this year introduced a couple of new rules. One of them was the sideline cut being awarded 2 points. Same with the ladies, they now award 2 points for 45 kicked off the ground. What is your take on changing the rules in hurling to include the 2 points for the sideline cut? And I'm going to reference here Joe Canning hitting 4 in a row with Galway.
Yeah, the Joe Canning thing is unbelievable. Like looking at stats like that, I think he's the stat was crazy. Like he's made like 20 something sideline cuts in championship history, and the next best is 7. So everyone, you see Joe Canning hit 4 in a row, and you start thinking lighter sliotar, it's getting easier, and then you see the stats, and like there's no one that can keep up with him. I think currently playing Austin Gleeson's the only one close with like 5 or 6. Those stats are about right now. I only saw it at the time, but I don't personally think 2 points is a runner.
Okay.
No, I don't see it myself. Like it's an unbelievable skill. I can see it getting more prevalent just with more people practicing it, and you've suddenly got a player there now who can do it. You're trying your best to copy it. It is so hard. I don't know if you've ever tried doing a silent cut before, but it's like I'm not much of a hurler,
no, I think it was at under 11 and the tiny little pitch, and I could barely lift it below my shin, I think it was.
Yeah, like when Joe, after he did the 4 in a row, I did have a good look at the YouTube video a few times, or see really trying to look at the I still don't get how he gets that much power, and he keeps the head down, and it's like a golfer essentially, but it's so hard. I mean, you get that left to right, it's unbelievable. Personally, no, I don't think 2 points. It's not a runner. Like we were just spent ages talking about like not changing the rules, and then we're trying to introduce these 2 points. I saw it first and I went absolutely. I think the first motion in Gaelic football, in hurling, was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but not for me. No, I don't think it has enough support anyway. It won't get in. I don't think Joe getting 4 in a row helps its cause really. People kind of see that and go, look how easy it is. But Joe's incredible. He's probably the best hurler of our generation, and like he's been around since 2009, I think. At senior level, I think one of his first games I watched him was Kilkenny or on RTE, or it was some game on RTE, and he was just unbelievable. And even 10 years later, he's still dragging Galway into games on his own, like he's been doing for 10 years, and he's got his All-Irelands. It's brilliant, but no, not for me. That's not a runner.
Not for the moment. I'm going to chat to you as well about your article. Didn't get a chance to read it, but can you kind of explain to the listeners a little bit about what you want to see changed in hurling?
Yeah, so again, walking contradiction. Don't want to see anything change, but I want to see plenty of things change. I think hurling is different to Gaelic. Like hurling hasn't made enough changes. Like the most important thing, like you come up with these 5 changes, and sometimes you might have to do fillers for the 4th and 5th one. So bear with me, stick with me maybe for the first couple, but I definitely think that the black card needs to come into hurling 100%. It's just every time. These teams are too good that if someone beats you, you're taking your man down, you're going to drag him down. And that's gone out of Gaelic football. Like while there's still cynical fouling in Gaelic football, it's not as obvious. To be more subtle about it, there's almost, for want of a better description, more skill in cynically fouling now. You got to make sure you don't pull them down, which is actually a hard thing to do. So I'd 100% introduce the black card, even if you just want to introduce it for pulling down and deliberate trips. I don't think anyone can argue with that, but all right, people are already giving out about me. 2 referees, I think that's a runner completely. I've already made those points, don't want to go over them again, but I'll be trying my best to keep up, unlike a lot of referees during that. I'll try my best. I do keep up a play, but I can't keep up a play when the ball's been hit 100 meters. And it's going to land there in about 3 seconds. So you can imagine that in Croke Park. And a lot of decisions in the All-Ireland final, Fergal Horgan's a good referee, but he's too far away from play, and it's not his fault. Like so, I get the 2 referees. The heavier sliotar, it is getting lighter. There's too many points being scored in hurling now. Like I know that's a hard thing to believe, but I think we're going to get in a situation similar to golf where in 4 or 5 years, we're going to get like 32. Like the players are only getting stronger. Like people are using the same sliotar we were using, years ago. I do think that's an option on the two on the heavier sliotar. I'm just gonna have to have a think about what the 4th and 5th one were. But the 4th one was definitely the getting more teams in the Joe McDonough's or in the Liam McCarthy. So for example, there's now 6 teams in Leinster. I'd put Kerry straight away into Munster and have your 2 6s. There has to be more chances given to these teams. There should be a 2 up, 2 down system, or even more teams, maybe a 1 up, 1 down like it is at the moment. But just making sure. Like Kerry should be given the chance in Munster. Like they are going to get hammerings at the start, but that's the only way they're going to improve is playing against the bigger teams. And then if you want to drop them into Joe McDonough for the rest of the championship after the round robin, and you'll have to bear with me. I can't really remember the 5th one, but by then I was already getting enough abuse in the first 4. Let's just have a quick look what we're talking. But yeah, they're the kind of points. Like I do think the black card in particular is a runner, and the 2 referees. But the final one I have is enforce the steps rules properly. So believe it or not, it's only 4 steps you're allowed in hurling. You'll be watching the All-Ireland final, you think it's 10.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I don't think there was one time when I think steps was blown up once in the All-Ireland final.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I worked on in my refereeing, where like in football and hurling, like when people start over carrying, it's because they're just about to hit contact. Like if you've got all the space in the world, you're not going to take 5 steps, because why would you risk it? But when you're in a big crowd, you try and get away from people, and when you start letting people away with 6 or 7 steps, what happens is people start tackling them then, and then you've got a massive decision to make. Or maybe so someone comes in for a foul after the 6 steps. You're like, right, do I blow for steps here or do I blow for the foul? Where now I try to blow for the steps before the foul comes in, which may seem harsh. But once teams get used to it, they get rid of the ball quicker. And if you bring that across the board, so that's a referee thing. And people weren't happy with that one either, to be honest with you. They didn't think it was a problem. But it is a problem, like when you're allowing 10 steps. There's nothing that ruins a goal. Like, I know it's football, but Merchant in last year's All-Ireland final took, I think it was 12 or 13 steps. Now, he's been fouled after 6 or 7 of them, or maybe 4 or 5 of them. But the whole point is he was allowed it was again farcical, to be honest with you. So they're my 5. So enforcing the steps rule properly is something I definitely think is something not talked about enough in both hurling and football. And it's a common problem, but it's something people don't see, and then they just see the foul and they don't realize that if you just call the steps. But like hurling, whatever football, hurling's ridiculous. Like 4 steps is never called. It's unless you want to change the rule to 6 steps and get people to maybe adhere to that, but then there's another real change for you. So there, 5 small changes. I don't think they're massive changes. Like they are pretty massive, I think, altogether. But if you brought 1 or 2 of them in, they definitely make hurling better, because I don't think hurling's in as good a place as everyone thinks it is, or the hurling people think that it is. I think Gaelic football gets a hard time at times, when I think hurling should be making some of the real changes myself anyway.
Yeah, I would think along the same lines. And I was on Twitter there a few weeks ago, and I can't remember who it was, but they were tweeting about, it was something about Leinster Championship, and it was like Galway play with Leinster because they don't have anyone to contend with at the moment in Connacht. And I think it was something about if something about who Antrim would now compete with if they're up, like, you know what I mean, in the Liam McCarthy, like it's kind of, and Pat Gilroy got a lot of feedback, I would say, on his suggestion with the counties, like with the provincial championships. What do you think is the solution? Is all this chopping and changing, like having Galway in Leinster and having whoever in here, like London's in Connacht for the football? What do you think is the solution, or maybe a suggestion for it?
Well, if you take like 2 different sports, like hurling, like you said, so you've Antrim and Galway competing in Leinster. It's just like putting a plaster over a wound and hoping it does the job. Like it's not. Yeah. Like the problem with hurling is like the best competition that we have in hurling is the Munster Championship, and when they brought in the round robin, like you won't get a better 5 or 6 weeks than Munster Championship and the Leinster Championship to a certain point, with Galway, Wexford, Dublin, and Kilkenny competing for the 3 spots. It was brilliant, like it was. So you can't really take away the Munster Championship. Yeah. But in order to have the Munster Championship, you need to have this Leinster Championship with a team from Ulster and a team from Connacht. I think it does work in hurling, that kind of format of the two. Like it is stupid, like having a Leinster Championship with teams from Ulster and Connacht. But I do think the Munster Championship is important for the All Ireland in hurling as it is any competition. Regarding football, like I don't know where you start with football, to be honest with you. Like Ulster's a brilliant competition. Connacht is actually okay with Roscommon, Mayo and Galway. Munster bar this year was a bit of a farce, really, especially when Cork weren't that good, and it's just Kerry walking it every year. And Leinster has been a non-event since 2004. Bar 1 year in 2010 was it that Meath beat Dublin. So I don't know if there's like, I like the likes of London, like brilliant seeing London get into a Connacht final a few years ago. There's nowhere else to put them other than Connacht. Like it'll be, I don't think New York are competing in the Connacht Championship this year now because of COVID. But there's not, like hurling wise, the problem with, like Pat Gilroy's point was that with hurling anyways, he's like similar to what I was saying in terms of like football, it gets a lot of stick, but hurling, like it isn't played like North. There hasn't been an All Ireland one North at Galway or Dublin ever in from Liam McCarthy. So there's half the country there that's not playing hurling or competing at the highest level in hurling. So I don't know how you get more counties involved. Like I like to think you should at least have at least let Kerry compete in Munster. Like they're in Munster, they're the 6th county in Munster. They're if there's 11 teams, 12 with Antrim, so they're probably the 12th best team in Ireland at the moment, and they're not being allowed to compete in Munster. So I think that's a quick fix there. But in terms of provincial championships, like I think ultimately in football they need to play them at the start and come up with a completely different format for the All Ireland Championships. But like that's another as a conversation for another day. hurling I'd keep it the same. Football I'd play them at the start in February, March, and then have a national league or like a 4 groups of 4 in the A Championship and 4 groups of 4 in the B Championship in the actual for the All Ireland. But I don't think that'll ever happen, because the problem with these sports is that the provincial councils are very powerful, and they make the majority of their money from ticket sales from these championships, which obviously haven't happened this year. But there's no quick solution. But I think, in football, bringing that forward to the start and playing as its own competition, to not like, it's stupid the way like Kerry can stroll through to All Ireland semi-finals or quarterfinals most seasons, obviously last year's side. So
before we go on to the Sideline 7, I just want to chat about the podcast for a second. I know we were chatting before we hit record, but what sort of advice would you give to people maybe looking to start a podcast? I'm always interested just to hear other people's take on what they would do, or what they would advise people to do.
Firstly, I would, invest in a good mic. There's plenty of good mics out there. Just do your research, find something good. I would set up a YouTube channel like we were talking about, but just to have something there on YouTube, because YouTube's definitely as big a platform as the podcast, sometimes bigger as well, or it can be. The big thing for me is make sure you have 20 episodes planned in terms of what exactly you want to do. So if it's a case you're doing an interview show, come up with 20 guests in your head. They don't all have to say yes, or they don't all have to be recorded. But if you have an idea in your mind of where you want to go with the podcast, it's if you can plan 20 episodes. It just, if you use that idea, plan, and if it's just a case of you talking to someone else, come up with those 20 episodes. But more importantly, I would just give it a go. Like, there's putting yourself out there. It's the hardest thing in the world to do. Don't get me wrong. Like, it took me, like, I wanted to do the podcast, well, pretty much since lockdown started. So when was that? Mid-March. It took me to the end of June to really, and I only kind of properly got going on it in June. So it's the toughest thing in the world. Don't get me wrong. And for anyone listening that wants to do one and has an idea they want to do, like, don't be thinking just because someone else is doing a similar thing that you can't do it. Like, and it's more enjoyment as well. You really enjoy. You get to meet new people. Interviews are really, like, I really enjoy the interviews. Like, I really enjoy talking and listening to people's stories. So I would, while having those plans, I would just go and do it, like, and just see where far it takes. And it doesn't have to be like the number one podcast in Ireland. Like, that's there's more. Everyone's like the joke in 2020. Like, everyone's created a podcast. Like, don't get me
absolutely.
wrong. But there's no reason why you can't add one more to that list. And if it's something you really want to do, just give it a go. Like, and unless I said do your research on Google. You think it's the biggest thing in the world to start one. It's not. It's actually very relatively easy to do. I wouldn't say easy, but it's it's doable. And then once you start it, that's it. You're away. You've got yourself a podcast, and your name's gonna be on Apple Podcasts on the when you search for it, so, which is brilliant. So I planned the episodes, but I more importantly, I would just do it. Like, don't be stopping me. If you have an idea of doing it, just do it. Like.
Yeah, don't be afraid to put your own spin on it. That's the thing. Like you were saying, just because someone else is doing it, like, you don't have to do it better, but you're putting your own spin on it. And interesting, you were saying about it is hard to put yourself out there. I remember I came up with the idea again near the start of lockdown. Took me months to even do the first episode, because it was all in my head. Like, it's especially, I think, we're at the age that people are starting to do their own thing, but it's still kind of, God, she's stepping or he's stepping one toe out of the line. What are they at? Like, that's not the done thing to be putting yourself out there or whatever. Yeah,
a big thing for me would have been, what's this person going to think? What's this person going to think? You get these stupid scenarios in your head when you realize that people, like, in the nicest possible way, don't really care if you do one or don't do one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you can kind of get that and take that the right way, now, it's not mean they don't care, but they don't, like, if you do a podcast, great. If you don't do a podcast, that's grand. Like, it doesn't bother them either way. Like, and they might listen, they might enjoy a couple of the episodes, or they might not. But, like, that's, if you really want to do it, just do it. But it's so easy to say. It's like, I don't think me saying this is all of a sudden going to push you to do a podcast. But if you do take it from the point of view, like, I was there, it took me 3 months to get going on it. You were similar situation, or so, like, it's a case of just do it. Like, it is the hardest thing. But important thing is, like, people don't really care. Like, do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
If you want to do one, great, and if you don't, that's grand as well. So it's just put yourself out, and you realize you might actually enjoy it. Like, so.
Exactly. Yeah, I have to say, I'm really enjoying it, and it's like you were saying, they're too busy worrying about themselves to be worrying about you. So you may as well get on with it.
Exactly. Everyone's got their own stuff going on. The whole world doesn't. That's what I like to. Sometimes I maybe think that the whole world revolves around me when it doesn't. Like, anyway. That's a good place to be if you realize it doesn't. Like, it doesn't actually. So you can go ahead and do whatever you want, or do things you want to do. I only wish I was, did it sooner rather than later. Like, but in a weird way, it's kind of good that I have this bit of experience behind me. But yeah, anyone listen, just do it. Like, and if you want to reach out for advice, not that I have much to say, but I'll give you my kind of version, no problem. Like, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of chatting then about looking forward to the next year, and kind of chatting about goals or plans with the podcast. What can we expect? I know you do a lot of sports preview shows, which I enjoy listening to, and one-to-one interviews. What are you planning to do, and what can we kind of expect going forward?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Like, our interviews do well. I was actually only looking at the figures the other day, but like sometimes our Premier League predictions, which is, for want of a better, such a bit of a city show, like for people just coming on to talking nonsense about the Premier League, like, but it's good. I suppose the slight difference of maybe say like a second captains is we're covering all 20 teams in like 40 minutes. That's the aim. So I guess if you're really behind and you haven't watched any Premier League all week, or you haven't any previews, probably not the worst podcast to listen to that 40 minutes, and in your head you're ready to go for the Premier League. So there's a number of ways. Like, I think people do sometimes get like, you absolutely should have goals, 100% have goals, but sometimes if you're struggling to come up with like goals, it's important to just kind of get the head down, just keep doing what you're doing, kind of thing. So I don't want to get too caught up in like, I want this, I want that. We have a couple of different directions the podcast can go. My aim for next year would be consistent, keep having like one a week at least, and keep doing it. We're still more of a trial area to see what works, what people like, what people don't like. If the podcast wants to get anyway big, it's going to take years of kind of like hard work. Like, there's going to be like there's only cases like where numbers are going to go down. You might think you do the best podcast in the world, but if I did the best interview in the world tomorrow, like, it won't get seen by enough people. That's just a fact. Like, it has to be consistently put out over a number of years. So that's the aim at the moment. There's no like massive goals or anything. We're working full time with Pundit Arena as well. That'll be kind of my main priority, but I'd like to keep the podcast. The podcast will be kept going with myself and Sean, and we're trying to get guests on doing one-on-one interviews, but also the bit of messing with the reviews. If something mad happens in the weekend, I'm sure we'll come on and do a sports review as well. But tackling sport, if you want to listen and see how the journey goes, that's where you can get us all the usual podcast platforms. So
absolutely, I'll be sure to link everything obviously in the description. And kind of chatting there about your one-to-one interviews, if you could chat to anybody in the world, you can pick multiple people now, who would it be? Who would be your sort of dream guest?
Definitely would be Roy Keane, 100%. Like, I've so many things to ask him, and I would. Don't worry if I, and you can hold me to this, if I do get Roy Keane, I will properly grill him about Saipan, because he hasn't been asked enough. I did message Conor McGregor hoping he'd come on. To the show. I think he replied to one of the stories and didn't come back to me, but I'm still trying. So I say between the two of them. Like, what Conor McGregor's done, like, obviously taking his off-field antics aside, or outside the ring, in the ring, it's been phenomenal. Or in the what he's done in martial arts, and pushed himself forward. So between him and Roy Keane, would probably, Ireland's probably two biggest sports stars in terms of like name rather than achievements. Although I think both of them are probably right up there as well. So they'd be those two.
Yeah, I'll be sure to clip this out now when you get them on and send it to you and be like, remember January 1st, 2021, we were chatting about this.
Oh, if I got Roy Keane, I would completely bottle it. Let's be honest with you. Real nice. This is what I'm going to ask you, Roy. We're just going to focus on. I won't even ask him about United. Just Sunderland. It's the first year, his year getting promoted as Sunderland manager. That we'll just focus on that. The 1 year of its management. No, but Roy is a great story, and to be honest with you, I enjoy listening to him on Sky, not because I think he's an unbelievable pundit, but I think he gets the entertainment value of it. Like, people. I love serious analysis. I don't come to Sky Sports all the time to, like Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher are brilliant. I think he works well with them. The fact he's got that one liner in him. You can't not watch Roy Keane when he's on. So I know, Roy Keane definitely, or McGregor.
So we're going to move on to Sideline 7. So it's the same 7 questions for every single guest. It can be fire round or thought provoking. It's up to yourself. Question 1: what is your favourite quote?
Yeah, favourite quote that we actually got a few good ones on the podcast, because we asked a similar kind of round. So I think one of them was like, the talent, hard work will be talent when talent doesn't work hard. I like that one. But my one personally, I've gone back years. If you want like an actual quote that's I've tried, I wouldn't be a massive quotes man myself, but I do think, I can't give you the formula for success, but I can give you the formula for failure, and that's try to please everybody. And I think that's a really important thing for people to know. Like, no matter what you do in life, in all walks of life, and anything you want to do, you're never going to please everybody. So you've got to make sure that you're doing what's right for you. And if you're worrying, like if I'm typing up an article going, I wonder what these supporters will think, or I wonder what this person will think, or I wonder what this person will think, and I'm trying to please to make these 3 people happy, you're never going to do that. You're actually going to end up with none of them happy. So you're better off, for example, in that situation, just giving your opinion on things. And in all walks of life, as I said, people kind of focus too much on other people's opinions. Yes, you should take them in, but that's definitely the form of failure. If you're going around trying to please everybody, you're not going to get anywhere. So I like that one, because there is no formula for success, but there's plenty of ways you can fail, and one of them is, as the quote goes, like, try to please everybody. So
Absolutely, I actually really like that one. I'm gonna rob that from you. I'm like yourself. I'm mad into the quotes. It's my mum laughs at me all the time. It's nearly a problem. Kind of chatting about obviously this year there's no supporters, and looking like next year the same. But what is the best sporting event you've been to?
Well, I think we touched on it earlier. Like, I love semi-finals atmosphere, because you're all there. Anyone that wants to go can go to them. So straight away, when I think of Dublin's victories, I'm not as massively into the Dubs after the 5 in a row, because I think supporters in general, we love failure, or sorry, you love the journey to success, and then when you get there, you don't want to be winning 6 All-Irelands in a row. Like, you do, obviously you do, but don't get me wrong. But so it wasn't the 2011 All-Ireland final; it was actually the 2013 All-Ireland semi-final. Again, because like anyone that wanted to go got to go. So there was about 8 or 10 of us in Hill 16, and at the game's level, it's probably one of the best games of Gaelic football ever played. The atmosphere was ridiculous. Like, I just remember like 5 minutes ago going, there's something different about this game, and it's going ahead. It's going to be a draw. Like, all the goals happened in the first half, so it was just a shootout in the second half points wise. But it basically, the ball broke to Kevin McManamon, and he kind of hit it, and the shock factor, I think, of the ball going in, because he kind of went to kick it over the bar, the old aim for the crossbar, and it went in.
Absolutely.
And I wasn't ready for the celebrations. Like, we kind of like, there was a guy beside us who we didn't know, who was, entertaining us the whole game with his one-liners. So you get that a lot on the hill, but we ended up just from the 8th row to like the 2nd row very quickly. And lads were like, a couple of lads, my mates came, who weren't that big into GAA, and they were just like, and everyone just erupted. It was just crazy.
Yeah.
Like, and I do think All-Ireland semi-finals are special, because everyone's there. Like, there's 40,000, whatever the split is, maybe 50,000 Dubs and 30,000 Kerry fans, and it was just amazing. And at that time, Dublin had messed up the All-Ireland in 2012. They won it in 11. Everyone was considering a lucky All-Ireland in Kerry anyway. I have a lot of Kerry cousins, so it was a nice one, definitely. So the Kevin McManamon goal, so that whole game was unbelievable. And I just remember walking out of Croke Park, and everyone was just like this, walking around like if you were still recovering from it. And I don't think that's been replicated in any game that I've been to with the Dubs. Like, there's been a lot of unbelievable games, but I think that one sticks out. 13 semi-final. Like.
Yeah, I was actually at that game as well, and
brilliant.
Incredible. Yeah, really good game. And I was actually in the lower Davin, and not too close, but close enough for Paul Mannion's goal. I remember that coming in.
Knocked it in, didn't he? Yeah.
Knocked it in, and I have to say, watching him going up for that, it was like he was hanging in the air. It was just incredible. Watching it back, I have to say as well, I think is one of the greatest football games I've ever seen.
And I think a big thing, like, when you watch games back, because you watch them a lot, and like Darren Maloney would only ever get the All-Ireland semi-finals, but I think he's like the best commentator hands down. And him and Kevin McStay were commentating on the game, and if you watch the 20-minute highlights or whatever they are on YouTube, it still gives me goosebumps. Like, when that Cluxton's kick out goes long, and because he went long because he'd no options. Like, he was just a kick and hope, and like the Kerry could easily have won that game, but Dublin won. It was brilliant. Like you said, the atmosphere was just unbelievable.
Absolutely. Biggest setback or challenge so far in your career?
I guess like, early on in the podcast, I think this is naturally with podcasts, they get kind of into the charts to start with, just to give a new podcast a chance. It's just the way the algorithm works in Apple Podcasts. But you're always going to get, like, the journey to success is what they say. It's never a straight line. It's ups and downs. So I guess like some days you do like you said, you think you did a good at podcasts, and it doesn't do what you think, and you're like, well, what did I do wrong? What did I need to, there's a lot of setbacks. So I think they've been setbacks. I was kind of ready for that. I guess the advantage of not starting the podcast till June, I had a lot of time to read up on them, and that's a big thing. Is people give up early on because they, the numbers they're hitting at the start, they don't quite get. So they've been my big setbacks. Like, for a while, like, and it's still, the numbers are, they're not as high as you'd like to think. Like, but in a dream world, you think, oh, I'd get, thousands and thousands and thousands. It doesn't work like that. So that's definitely been a setback and a challenge. It still is, and it's just learning to keep doing what you're doing, but also learn to improve as well. It's not a case of just, if you're looking at what I use, like Spotify for podcasts, where you're looking, okay, some episode, we might do an hour and a half show, and like 70 or 80% of people listen to the end, and then we might do a 30-minute show, and 30% of people listen to the end. So you're like, even though you've done an hour longer, people listen if it's good. So the old saying, like, the market's always right, the people that listen, they're always right. So if they don't like it, they don't like it. Like, there's a reason for it. So that's the challenge, constantly learning, trying to learn, but also don't get too downhearted either if it's not working out. So I think that's a big thing.
Yeah, something I caught myself doing a lot, still do sometimes, is a lot of comparison with other podcasts. Like you were saying, you don't get the views. Well, why did he get the views, or why did she get the views? but it's just you're going down this rabbit hole of you're never gonna, if you're looking to be, you know, up there against, like for example, let's say I was looking to be at the same level as tackling sport or better, like you're never going to be happy then because you're busy chasing somebody else, whereas you should be just chasing your own success really.
100%. Like I was actually like that now that you said it at the start, definitely. Where now I couldn't even tell you anyone's figure. You know what I mean? I don't, not that I don't care, but I've kind of focused a lot more. I feel like even though I've only been doing it 6 months, I've been doing it for years in my head. Like, so it's just focus on your own self. You want, it's that whole thing, like you want people to do well, like, and sometimes it's not a natural thing. So like I definitely would found that just in general, like you see people doing well. Maybe, you know, a few years back I might have been wishing them well in my head. Just your own kind of, I don't know what the word for it is. Like, whereas now I definitely feel like I see someone doing well, not just in podcasts, but in general, and I'm, you know, without swearing, I'm genuinely really delighted for them. And you've got to get yourself into that mindset. And sometimes it's not a case of genuinely being delighted them early on. I'm talking maybe early on trying to change that mindset. It's just maybe almost pretend to do it, and then eventually you get. So I'm definitely at the stage where if I see someone doing well, I'm genuinely really happy for them. But it wasn't always the case, and people might be like that sometimes. You might see a post on social media and just in general that, you know, does really well. Oh, why is that person posting all the time? I was definitely like that a few years ago, where now, especially the podcast itself, where I really am, you want people to see people doing well, but people don't, it's not always a natural thing for everybody, you know, because it's just, I think it's sometimes it's your instincts, oh, why, you know, you might, because you're not, maybe you don't feel like your posts are getting the recognition they deserve, but definitely just being, if you get to the mindset of being more happy for other people's success, it definitely helps you in your life, because you're not holding that grudge all the time. I think it's, we own Kerry, we were speaking to on the podcast, he brought that up, or between the two of us we were saying that, and it's definitely true. Like, if you can just see people's posts, genuinely be happy for them, even though if you might not be, it just saves you that negative energy, and it's a big part of like getting into the mental wellness and stuff like that. It's a big part of that too. So yeah, that's definitely one advice.
Yeah, that's something that I like. I always enjoy a good podcast, and if I've really enjoyed it, like I've reached out to yourselves, like anyone who I listen to since starting the podcast, I've realised how much effort it is, and it is hard to do a good interview, and it's hard to have a really good engaging chat. And I'll always message the person and be like, look, that was brilliant, like I love that, because it's without, until you do the podcast, you don't realise how difficult it is. And I would have been before starting to be like, ah, Jesus, what are they doing? Like that's easy, like, but it's not. It is difficult. What is your biggest achievement on or off the pitch?
I suppose on the pitch with GAA, like it would be, we did like 4 promotions in 6 years. We were right at the bottom of Division 11 in Dublin football, or Division 10 South as it was at the time, and now we're in the dizzy heights of Division 6. But for those that don't play GAA and are just into soccer, like Leinster Senior Leagues, in GAA we don't call ourselves, you know, Major 3, Major 1 when we're like Division 6. We just call ourselves Division 6, like proper adults, where in soccer it's very, you know, like Premier. If you're in Leinster Senior Premier on Sunday, my understanding is you're like Division 6 or 7, but they don't like calling themselves that. But yeah, we're moving up. We're moving up the ranks. We're in the Junior A Championship. I think being part of that success, a small part of it, with the group of players there was brilliant. Off the pitch, definitely setting up tackling sport. And no matter what happens now, the rest of it, I'll always have that. Do you know what I mean? It'll always stay going in some capacity. So yeah, definitely those two things, on and off.
Next question, advice to your 18-year-old self.
Well, realizing how big, like, you know, video content and audio content is, getting ahead of the curve, doing that at 18 would be nice. Like I think I saw something there yesterday. Your man from Mrs. Brown's Boys, Rory Counter, used to be in it, and I've no interest in that. I don't follow him. He just came with my feeds because someone I follow liked his tweet, and it was just a minute 15 video. I have no interest in what he has to say. That's just I don't know him. Like, and I watched the video just because it's a 1 minute 15 clip on my Twitter feed. So taking that back a step and being able to constantly produce audio and video content about sports back then, or even now is people's attention. Like, people love videos. Love audio content. So I guess we'll start all this what I'm doing now earlier, but at the same time, like, you know, I do feel having that extra 8 years is kind of probably stop caring about what other people think. I definitely had a lot of that right up to this year, still do. Like, I think it's a natural thing. So yeah, those two things really, like, produce in any form, written, audio or video, and stop caring what other people think.
Yeah, that's a good one. Dream dinner guest and why?
Yes, I don't want to say Roy Keane again. I do think Roy Keane will be very good. I do think someone like Jim Gavin, you don't know. I want to know what Jim Gavin's like after a couple of glasses of wine or what's any kind of nuggets or anything, because he's so like controllable. What he did with Dublin in terms of and Pat Gilroy to an extent as well. So I'd say to change it up, I'd go Jim Gavin, not because everyone think that's an incredibly boring, dinner guest, but I do think there's another side to Jim Gavin. I know he does great work in I think it's Robert Emmons he's involved in, or sorry, Round Towers. Sorry, I get mixed up with those two. Round Towers, Clondalkin. So I think I'll go Jim Gavin.
That's a good choice. Last question: if your life was a book, what chapter would this be called?
I'd go for something like I like to building up, I guess. So if you're reading that, going, geez, whatever he's doing now, this must lead to something amazing. Even though I have no idea what that's going to be. I go with the build up, I wasn't only really recently got into this, world, I guess, journalism, sports, podcasts and stuff. So I'd say building up. I'll go building up as opposed to the build up. Just keep it exciting. It doesn't have to be ending at the end, but by then people have already read the book, so it's they paid for it. I haven't got it written yet, but and slow down, I don't catch up. But I'll go building up. Building up. That's the name of the chapter.
This is keeping the suspense. This is why people need to go to Tackling Sport and see what you're going to do. That's a good one. So Daniel, look, I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks for coming on and sharing all your opinions and views and everything. I'll be sure to link everything in the description. If you're into sport at all, be sure to go check out Tackling Sport. Thanks a million, Daniel, and happy New Year.
You too. Thanks a million for having us on, and best of luck with Sideline.
Thanks a mil.
Cheers.
A massive thank you to Daniel for coming on today. Be sure to check out Tackling Sport, which is available on all podcast platforms, social media, and their own website, www.tacklingsport.com. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, be sure to leave a rating and review. And if you're interested in starting up your very own podcast, be sure to get in touch with the Primal Productions team over on Instagram @PrimalPro.